HB. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start in on this triangle space. I'm going to give everything a base layer like we have done before, and then I'm going to go back with the darker values later with my 6B. So before we begin, if you have a pretty dull pencil, I would just recommend you go and do that right now. Go sharpen your pencil before digging in. If you are ready to begin, I'm just going to go ahead and start. Giving this space just a very light overlayer. And we're just going to start with the triangle in the front. So we won't be pushing back towards here just yet. Once I have that in, I'm actually going to take my 6B. And you see like right up here, where's there's a little shadow against her arm and the top. I'm going to go ahead and just emphasize that line here very subtly. We're not going very thick. And then that dark line curves under. And I'm going to stop there for now. Once I have gotten to the bigger triangle section, I am going to complete a line that comes down here, and then with my 6B I will start bringing in this shadow. Notice they are two separate shadows that complete that triangle, so we're looking for this dark shape. We've kind of already put it in. So I'm going to start with my line, and then with a very light pressure I'm just going to start circle motions, pulling that shadow in. If I feel in certain areas I need to go sharper, I will. This is where we're really just defining our shapes and making them feel nice and real. From here, if I feel like this bottom shape is not dark enough, I can always go in and adjust it. I could do a light layer with my 6B, or I could go back to my HB and just give it another soft overview, which is what I'll probably do. Okay. I don't need this sharp line above it, so I'm going to go ahead and erase. And it's just right there. Some of you may not have put that in, so don't worry about it if you didn't. And then we can move on to the bottom triangle. But before I do that, who needs me to slow down? Okay, that's totally fine. Do you need me to re-explain it, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, you just need to get it in. You good? Is there anybody ready to move on? 1, 2. Okay, we'll go 30 more seconds, so we'll move on. Carl, you behind. Oh no. Are you sure? Ooh, okay. Watch the videos if you're struggling. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the back portion. As always, grab your HB first. That was aggressive, Campbell. So with our HB, we're just going to give that section a nice light overlay. And then we go back over with your 6B. If you're feeling like your 6B is too aggressive, you are always welcome to switch to a 4B first, to kind of gather and get more of your bearings in before you move on. There's a very small amount of highlight here, so I am going to kind of continue to go over with my 6B, but I'm not going to cover that completely because I do want that to kind of shine through. And I'm just going to go back and forth around it to make sure that it still shows through. And then I'm going to go ahead with my HB and start to kind of soften up some of these edges because we don't want hard edges. Right now I have really hard edges and I don't want them that hard. I'm going to go through and I'm just going to soften the edges up. And that's simply taking your HB and going right over those lines just to give them more soft edges versus really sharp. The only one that should be really sharp is this top line. Everything else should feel nice and soft transitions. So that's what I'm going to kind of come in and try to create. As we move forward, if you have really hard lines like I do around your hands, okay, so like really sharp, loud lines, I would suggest taking your kneaded eraser and just coming in and stamping. So you're pushing and pulling off. You're going to get like imprints in your eraser. What that's going to allow is it's going to give me the lines that I need, but not as harshly as they are, so I can create more of a real lifelike value change versus it feeling like a drawing. Because our goal is to make this feel and look very lifelike. When you guys are ready, we'll move on to the arm. Okay, I think I have a few people waiting to move on. Is there anyone that needs a little extra time? Okay, then we will move on. Okay, this next section I'm only going to use my HB for. If I feel like I need to go a little darker, I'll probably grab either a 2B or a 4B, but I'm not going to actually even use my 6B for quite some time. We are going to focus more so on the under areas of the arm, just like you see in the reference here, but they're not a complete black, so we're not going to make them black. And when you are doing this, you want to think circle motions. You do not want to go back and forth. And the last thing you want to think about is this arm is a rounded surface. It's not flat, right? So when we come in to do our values, we want to think rounding versus straight up and down. Okay, because if we come in on a flat surface, or if we come in on a round surface with flat lines, we've now made that a flat surface. If you come in with round lines on a round surface, where you're going like with the grain basically, you're going to create that 3D feel. So what I'm going to do right now first is I'm just going to come in with circle motions very lightly, and I'm going to find the shapes that I need. So I'm going to come in with a very light outline where I think all these shapes are going to sit. And I'm going light enough that I can erase later if I feel like I went too far or if I feel like I don't need those lines anymore. So I've done the forearm, then I'm going to go ahead and do, I guess not the forearm, whatever this arm, what is this called, guys? Tell me. This is your forearm, right?
Yeah.
What's this?
Upper arm.
Bicep?
Like this whole section is your bicep? I thought bicep was right here.
From
You guys' anatomy's nuts.
From the inside of your elbow to above your bicep?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Me neither!
I know
Because
your
I'm like,
bicep,
this is a forearm.
but I
Just
don't
call it
remember
the
what
upper
inside of
arm.
your elbow is
We're
called.
just going to call it upper arm today because I'm stressed out. That was weird. Okay, so we're going to go upper arm first, which is what we just did, and then we're going to go ahead and pull to our forearm. And again, we're just making a very light overview of where this line should be. And you can see I'm kind of coming back and forth, but I am also working with circle motions. So we have a base overview.
Miss Carter.
What?
Who says it's got like two really weird scientific names, or it's called an elbow pit?
Yeah, but that's just right here.
Yeah.
This is your elbow pit.
I don't know.
It's like you have a knee pit. I don't know. We're going to call it upper arm. I like that. It's easier.
Upper arm.
Upper arm.
That's probably what it is.
I mean, I make up words all the time in class anyway. It's not like this is a surprise, right?
It's like Shakespeare. You
There you
have
go.
random words to describe stuff.
I feel like it's
That is true. Okay, now that I have the overlay, I'm going to go back over it with my HB and do another layer, but we're going to go slightly darker this time. If you feel like your HB is not cutting it on the dark value for you, you are always welcome to change it up and grab your 2B or your 4B. If you have only a 2B and 4B, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mrs. Carter, because I don't have an HB, you're using the same pencil, you're just softening your pressure. So you just want lighter pressure as you're working with your pencils and your shading. If you feel you need to give that under space right at the edge of the shadow, a little bit more of a harder edge, you can obviously outline and then go back over, pull the outline forward with your shading. There is a really nice vein on her wrist right here that I definitely would love to see you guys attempt. If you're feeling like you want to, go for it. It's pretty simple. You're just leaving a space open and then you're going over it, just above it with a little bit of value, indicating that that vein is there. Okay, and if you're at this point, you're like, oh, these lines look really heavy and harsh. Just like we did earlier, go back over them really lightly with your HB. And just pull some of that value upwards. Because we want soft lines, we don't want super heavy lines. Bless you. And the beauty of her arm is the top part we don't have to shade. Woo! Are we ready to move on to the hand, or do you guys need a few more minutes? I'm gonna guess a few more minutes, because like I only saw one thumbs up. Okay, if we are ready to move on to the hands, or I guess the hand, because we've already done one hand. You're focusing on the interior. I am not saying you have to add nails at all if you do not want to add nails. Okay, in fact, I don't recommend it if you're like unsure about doing so. Okay, so with the hands, there's a lot of things going on right now. I would prefer us focus on the hard outline to each section of the finger and then some subtle interior shading. So there is the hard line on the outside of the thumb. So we'll put that in first. And right now, if your pencil is dull, go sharpen it, because we're doing a lot of really tiny details. Okay, from there, you can go ahead and just get in the dark triangle in between the fingers. That gives you the indication of the palm of the hand. That's really simple. It's very much like when we did the back arm. You go dark on the far edge, and then as it comes closer towards the body, you want to lighten it up. When you are getting into the thumb, we want to focus on these tiny little indications of value, giving the knuckles. I wish I could zoom in more. Sorry, this is as far as it goes. So on the thumb, we have the little indication of shading right above. Okay, yes. I can't hear what you just said.
Brightness.
It's too bright? Is that a little better? Okay. So we have that top thumb, and if you notice, they're kind of triangles, and they're coming, stretching over the thumb. And then we have the bottom one down below, and it's coming upwards. Once you have those in, I would go ahead and just do a soft overlay of value. The top finger's fairly much the same. I'm going to go with my 6B up above. create that line. Shade it in just a little bit. And then we can go in with our HB and create the knuckles. This is tough just in general because of how small the hand is. So if you're stressed, don't worry, we're all kind of suffering with you. As long as we get most of the information in, we should be fine. If any of you need to stop what you're doing and then come look up here without having to look at the projector, that's totally fine too. And it's interesting to me because as I'm working with the fingers, I'm starting to realize that I actually don't have them long enough on my drawing. So I am going to adjust right before I actually start shading. So if you feel the same, by all means, no one's stopping you. I'm going to adjust one more finger before I actually start shading. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and shade. I'm going to start with my 6B again. Come in here, just get the bottom line in of the middle finger. Go back over with my HB. And I'm just going to go from the 6B line really heavily, and I'm just going to pull up. The last two fingers are really simple. Not super complicated. And I'll stop there. I'm going to do a quick walk around and then we'll move on to the chest or the stomach area, maybe the hips and the joints down there, but we'll see where we are. Yeah, you can see the third finger. I put mine in, but it's like barely
I feel like
in.
it's way too small.
If you can't fit it, don't worry about it.
But now that I notice it, I can't not see it.
I know, it's a little frustrating. Okay, again, if you feel like you are ready to move on without me, you are welcome to do so. No one is telling you you have to wait. We are to a point where I believe you understand shading enough that if you would like to move on without me, you absolutely can. But it's completely up to you.
Good morning.
Anyone feeling like we can move on? Okay, we'll wait a little longer. You're like the only one, so it's not a big deal.
That's okay. I can adjust a couple of things then.
Is there anybody willing to move on now? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna go probably 30 more seconds and then we'll move on. But again, if you're just waiting around and you want to kind of tackle it yourself, you are more than welcome to try it out. And if you get stuck, that's what I'm here for. While I am waiting, I'm just going to come in here and pull some of these harder lines out with my eraser. Lines I just don't feel need to be that dark. I'm only going to do one leg with you, and then you're on your own with the other leg, so.
You should do the easy leg.
I mean, neither of them are easy. Neither of them are difficult. They are mutual. If you can do one leg, you can absolutely do the other. It's all about just paying attention to detail. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to the torso. So right here is where we have a lot of information kind of sitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to kind of pinpoint some darker spaces, the creases of her skin. And I'm just going to come in really lightly. And you don't have to do every single one, but we want enough so that we have information to work with. And then from there, I'm just going to go really lightly with my HB this whole time. And go over through that space, creating darker value here and there. It's going to feel like she kind of has gills, but that's kind of what creases in skin look like until we get in there and shade them all. So you're just trying to focus on the darker shapes that you see. If you can get your darker shapes in, everything else will fall in place. So I have most of that in. And then I'm going to go over it. Well, I'm going to actually cover this whole area first. And then I'll go back over with my 6B and just kind of clean up that area. One of the easiest spots to kind of focus in on is this front portion of the pants. There's a little divot here that creates a little bit of value. I am using my 6B and I'm using very light amounts of pressure. If you do not feel you are confident enough to do light amounts of pressure with this type of pencil, please stick with your softer pencils. Does it not sound like they're listening to like Darth Vader?
No, it does.
That's deep. I don't know what's going on over
No,
there.
it sounds like the voice in the Axiom from Wall-E.
That's crazy. I am coming in here with the line of the pants with my 6B, just redefining the shape so I don't lose those shapes. And then I'm going to go ahead and focus on the back portion, getting that hard line that matches her top. And then I'm just going to blend forward with some of those specific creases in her skin. There's a heavy crease on her pants right at the top, so I'm really going to focus on that and pull that forward. And then I'm going to continue down, tapering off that heavy line because there's not a whole lot going on right here. There's a little bit of it to kind of hone in on this shape, but it does taper off quite a bit more than the other areas. And I'm even going to probably pull that back a little bit. Because the line in the foreground, more close towards her hip bone, it's a little bit more defined. So I'm going to pull that shape in first, and then I'll go around. Right now I am solely using my 6B. How many of you before this class did not realize how much different pencils help you shade? Do you get it now? You cannot go this rich with an HB. You can only go that dark with like a 6, like a 5 to almost a 9B, depending on what ones you have. I know a lot of people don't think that using different pencils while shading matters, but it matters quite a bit if you want to get deep amounts of value with strong sections of space. I think I'm going to go maybe just a little bit more forward with some of this HB value, just ever so lightly. And then I'm going to try to make sure that I do not lose that line. Bring it back in. And I think I could probably give the front portion of her pant strap a little bit more value before moving on. Okay, moving forward. All we want to focus on right now are the creases of her pants in her hip region. You're going to see that there's going to be a lot of change in value based upon where all these lines are sitting. So I would take plenty of time to analyze where all these little creases are going to go. You can use your 6B to place them in first, or you can use your HB or a lighter pencil. We want to establish them. And then we can go over with our HB with a lighter value and just kind of work all that in. Yes. Yep. We're at 35 minutes right now. I am recording it. So I'm coming in now with my HB, my lightest pencil, and I'm just going to give this whole section a really light overlay. Trying to stick with circle motions as much as possible. I don't want to see anybody going really heavily this way. That's not going to help you. I want to see either tight circles or you can go loose and wide. But if you're going back and forth, you're just going to flatten out your shape. So I'm going to stop right about there with the overall coverage, and then I'm going to start coming in a little bit heavier with some of my values. Right now, I'm going to focus only on using my HB. I'm going to give every area that I believe needs the value a little bit of a maybe 2 or 3 layer space before I decide to go in with a darker pencil, just so that I don't go too dark too soon. Okay, once I feel like I've got a decent amount of layers, I'm going to start going in and really defining some of these spaces a little bit more. This is where we're really going to be able to determine her anatomy. We don't want to flatten anything out. We want to make sure everything stays where it was when we began. Because she is wearing the tighter pants, it does help us see more of her space, more of her skin and her bones and how they work together. So we don't want to get rid of that by just giving her a flat value in the shading of her pants. We want to focus on all these little divots, all these little extra spots where there is still information. Okay, now that I feel like I've got everything in pretty heavily, I'm going to go right back over everything and soften it out with my HB. I know it seems tedious, but I promise you it makes a difference. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a few minutes, give you guys some time to catch up. Yes. Yeah, I would say maybe slow down, don't go too dark on like the frontal area. The back of her top is going to be lighter or darker than the front part. So I would just say maybe light up some of the front areas, but overall it looks good. just a heads up, we are going to move on to the bottom leg together. Come in.
I have this for Gordon.
Who?
Gordon.
Okay.
Just drop it somewhere.
Thank you.
Yep, fine.
Better. Okay, do I have anybody brave enough to move on? That's okay. If we need to just stop here for the rest of the class, we can do that as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just stop here?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stop here, then we'll do the legs